All right, it is 3 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get this started. As others join, they can just jump in when they get here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon for our monthly, our last of the year monthly cyber security awareness training program. We do these presentations monthly. So we do have our upcoming ones for next year. So if you have any other individuals that are interested in that, the content does change frequently. This has been updated since even last month. Obviously, I update these as the threat landscapes and things change a little bit, at least from a user standpoint. There's a lot going on, this month, especially just these last couple of weeks in the cybersecurity realm. Some of it I'm not really going to be covering just because from an end user standpoint, it's probably a little too high level, but the general conception of it is the same. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Brian Powell. I am the network engineer manager here at PCA Technology Group. I oversee our entire help desk and engineer department. And I'm also a certified ethical hacker. So really what that means is, a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, technically I could actually physically do, or I know how to do for sure. That's obviously for the reason for that is in order to stop the bad guys from doing some of this stuff, you have to know how they do it. So that's the concept behind that. So why cybersecurity? As I mentioned, anybody that is tuned into the news, the paper, any websites, probably hears about cybersecurity at least once a week, if not more, depending on your role within the company. Some are more worried about it than others, obviously. But in general, 2020, this previous year, basically broke all records when it comes to cyber attacks. Part of that might have been the COVID, instance where a lot of people were working remotely, and a lot of the security layers that are in place at office buildings weren't necessarily in place at people working from home. So it might have allowed easier attacks and stuff. Obviously that transferred over into this existing year as well too. We're still kind of fighting, do you go on site, do you go off site? A lot of companies are making that conversion from off site to on site. So it's definitely changed things from our standpoint that, it's a little tricky sometimes trying to protect things of what we call outside the four walls, when it comes to a company. So, we've had to take different approaches, and obviously the bad guys know how to avoid some of these approaches. So it's kind of one of those things where it's a constant cat and mouse game. But ultimately, that's really why we're talking about this and making sure that everybody on the call here is kind of aware of what's going on out there, and to be a little more sensitive to some of the tactics that they're doing. The other reason, obviously, many companies are compliance or insurance requirement driven, and in that case, things like this and training like this is a requirement. There's a lot of cybersecurity insurance companies out there that are now being a lot more strict when it comes to renewing policies because of how big of a issue cybersecurity has become for many companies. So if you haven't renewed your policy yet, be prepared. It's probably going to be a nightmare for you, unfortunately. So it's one of those things where, if you need help getting through it, we've helped a lot of our clients make sure they're in compliance with that, or answer those tough questions that have been added since the previous time that they've done that. So who's responsible? As an actual IT provider, PCA is managing a lot of clients. While we put a lot of layers of defense, and any IT provider would normally do this, they put a lot of layers of defense in to try to keep the bad guys out. Those defenses are really only as good as everybody that's on this call. It's owners are responsible, employees are responsible, pretty much everybody. Anybody that touches or uses any type of computer device is responsible for cybersecurity, because ultimately what we call the end user is the human firewall. And our protections are only as good as the person on the inside. If the person on the inside turns off those protections inadvertently, or opens up a hole inadvertently, or a door or a window per se, it just lets the bad guys come right through as if they were invited in. And we added this cartoon recently. It kind of shows you, it's like a boxing ring. In the one corner, you've got your data security with all your firewalls, your antivirus, your softwares, and everything else. And then you have Dave in the other corner, who is just waiting to we're waiting to knock those defenses down. So just a little comedy relief there, but I'm sure every company has a Dave, and this was actually shared from one of our clients that they wanted me to make sure we called out that Dave that was within their company. So the other thing too to be aware of is, if the bad guy does get in, or a hacker does get into your system somehow or another, it's not like they're raising red flags and sending off all kinds of alerts and alarm bells saying, "Hey, I'm here," waving the flags and trying to draw attention to themselves. The reason for that is, a lot of times you're not physically being targeted by that individual. They tend to send out thousands, hundreds and thousands of potential attack methods, and they just wait for someone to grab a hold of one of them. And when someone does, once they get within those walls, they basically start looking around to figure out who it is they got. So that's really what this is. They look for, what company is it? Okay, then they kind of go back from there. Okay, what does this company do? Okay, well, what is valuable? Is there insurance information, credit card information, social security, any type of personal information that could be potentially stolen and used and sold on the dark web or whatever, anything that is of monetary value. That's kind of what they're doing in your systems, is seeing what valuable information is in there. And a lot of times they'll steal that off of your network, put it on the dark web and sell it and try to extort money out of you, or they'll just sell it without you even realizing it. And sometimes they may actually encrypt your data, which in that case, they basically lock your data and basically say, if you want the key, you're going to pay me X hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes in the millions. That's basically ransomware. So the idea is that you pay them, they hopefully give you the key to unlock your data, or obviously if you have good backups that aren't encrypted, you could actually roll back. You might lose a little bit of information, but you won't lose everything. Otherwise, the ransomware is kind of, you're at their mercy at that point. If you don't have a good backup to roll back to prior to the encryption, you're probably not getting access into that data without paying them. So, and then there's always the risk that, you hope they're ethical criminals, and that they honor, once you make that payment, that they honor what they say they're going to do and give you back that key. But it's a very lengthy process, and it's a very stressful process. We've had some folks come to us that have been breached, that aren't our clients, and we've kind of assisted with some of those recovery methods. But it's a business model. It really is, and that's if they didn't give you the key, obviously people wouldn't be paying the ransom to get their data back if they know there's no chance of getting it. So that business model would fall apart. And right now the U.S. is actually, from what I'm understanding, they're actually talking about making it illegal to pay that, to try to avoid these really high ransom demands for some companies. I mean, it's very widespread. Some things happen locally here if you're in the local area. There's a lot of companies that got hit locally, some national. So it's an ongoing thing. So it's just something you need to be aware of. So how's all this done? Basically, it's done with what's called social engineering. And social engineering, in its easiest definition, really is just manipulating human beings. That's really what it is. I like to refer to it as the electronic form of the old day con man, where back in the old days, a con man might go door to door and sell you some magical elixir that was going to solve all of your ailments or keep you young forever. Or someone selling you real estate that was supposed to be, really high valuable prime real estate in Florida, and you find out it's nothing but a hunk of swampland that isn't even developable and things like that. So it's one of those things where this is just basically the electronic form. It's tricking somebody or manipulating somebody into doing something that the other person wants them to do. And it's extremely easy. It really is. And it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things where people can be manipulated very easily. And it's just one of those things that if you say the right things, the person doesn't even realize it. And it's human tendency. It's not just one individual. It's all individuals can be manipulated. Some are harder than others, but somewhere along the line, someone can definitely manipulate you with the right information and the right tactic. It's just human nature. So the one thing, what are the most common attacks when it comes to social engineering? By far and above, email is the biggest attack vector for social engineering. In fact, it takes, over 90% of the social engineering methods and attacks are done via email, and it's done with phishing and various methods of phishing, and we'll talk more about that. It also be done through social media. Social media is widely used by many people, and unfortunately, people don't have off buttons sometimes when it comes to social media, and it's unfortunate, but they tend to post every waking second of their lives on social media. So social media in itself is definitely a place for reconnaissance. So if I do happen to realize what company I'm on, and I happen to drop a user list once I get inside a company, and figure out, hey, this person works there, that person works there, that person works there. Okay, great. Well, now I'm going to social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever. All those social media platforms is the next stop for a bad guy, and they're going to start researching your name. Once they get a hold of some names of users that are within this company, they're going to start researching. And the reason why they're researching is because they're looking for potential info that they could either manipulate you even further or password hints. Social media is a big deal when it comes to these little trick surveys and stuff that people answer without even thinking that what you're doing. And it's a simple question is, one of your apparent friends who may be a real friend or may not be a real friend shares something out that's what was your first car when you took your driver's test in? Okay, well, guess what? That's one of your password reset questions. Or just this recently, I happened to see many parents on Facebook posting all this information about their children going into school. First day of school, and they're telling they have these poster boards or chalkboards written what's their favorite color, what's their favorite food, what's their pet's name, what's their teacher's name, and you're giving away all of your children's password resets when they get older, because normally the colors won't change, their favorite food won't change, and obviously their second grade teacher's name is not going to change. So it's just all this stuff is out on the internet to just be harvested and held on to until they become adults. It's something just you need to be aware of, that there's automated software that just grabs all this stuff, and it's very easy to perform reconnaissance using social media on people. So be very, very careful what you post, and don't do it real time. If you're on vacation, and it's a lengthy vacation, don't be posting, oh yeah, husband and I went out to the beach, it's such a lovely sunset, while you're still there. All you're doing is basically telling anybody on the internet that really wants to break into your house, hey, my house is empty, and a thief could probably go and do that very easily and by the time you get back, you're going to be like, what happened? Post that stuff when you get back, not while you're there. Just a little sidebar. Trends, there's ransomware we talked about, extortion, and that was the part where they may steal your data and try to sell it, or hold, say you got to give them X amount of money or they're gonna sell it or post it publicly, things like that. Who's behind it? Sometimes it's criminal groups, sometimes it's third world nations, terrorists potentially, And sometimes it's malicious insiders. As much as you think you can trust people that may be employees or employers of yours, it's hard to really judge somebody in mindsets, and with all the stress and stuff that's been going on, with everything as of late, the new norm. It's really hard to gauge people sometimes. So you really gotta prepare for all levels. I'm not saying that's widespread, but it does happen sometimes. So, and we mentioned about the attack vectors. More likely than not, these attacks are being performed remotely. The occasional physical onsite would be if it was a malicious insider potentially, but most of the stuff is happening via remotely. In one way, shape, or form, whether it's mobile, cloud, or internet-based, email-based, and stuff. So we'll cover more about the email here right now. So web surfing, this kind of ties into the email, that if you are doing any type of web surfing from your work PC, we highly recommend that you limit your surfing to business use. It definitely keeps your attack vector much smaller than if you're just widely going out there and surfing the net and doing stuff that isn't business related. Obviously that's a huge thing. The other thing to it, and you can tell I'm really targeting social media here because it is a very susceptible platform, unfortunately, and it's across all of them. It's not just, I'm not just picking on a Facebook or a Twitter or anything like that. LinkedIn is just as volatile, and I know a lot of businesses use LinkedIn, but that could also be used in a harmful way at some extent. But if you can, try to stay away from social media. Like I said, I know companies sometimes do marketing and things like that with social media, and if you're one of those companies, just be careful. I'm not telling you to completely stay off of it, because obviously that's not possible, but just be cautious of what you're doing and who you're allowing and what you're posting and things like that. The other thing too is, if you do keep your surfing limited to business use, you may not get as many suspicious pop-up windows that could be front ends for possible download links. And what I mean by that is anybody that's in the Buffalo area here, sometimes if you go to like the Buffalo News website and read an article, or you go to one of the local news channel sites, whether it's WIVB or GRZ, if you go to any one of those three, and you start reading stuff, sometimes in the middle of the article, Buffalo News will pop up, hey, please subscribe to our paper or subscribe to our digital copy or whatever, before it'll let you continue to read. And some of the news sites, hey, for instant alerts, sign up now, and you can't do anything until you close that window or whatever. Those are legitimate pop-ups, but if you're on a site that you're not 100% familiar with, and it might be foreign to you, or something that you just did a Google search on and went to because you're trying to look at something or whatever, if one of those windows pops up, your first inclination obviously is to close the window down, and there's usually a close button at the bottom, or you can go up to the corner and there's usually probably a little X up there you can hit to close them down. But the bad guys know that, and if that's a malicious pop-up, what will happen is when you click on one of those two areas, it'll close the window down, but it'll actually start a download that was hidden behind that you didn't even realize, and you could effectively download something inadvertently without even realizing it. So if you do find yourself in one of those situations where you have to get rid of one of those pop-ups that you're not 100% positive of, you can hit Control W or Alt F4 on your keyboard, and that will close either the window with focus down or close your browser down completely, so you don't have to click on one of those areas, just to protect you. It can happen, but obviously keeping that surfing limited to business use will help alleviate some of that, some of those risks involved with that. So with that said, moving on to email. Again, same concept. Don't, especially now. Obviously it's really late in December here, but our last one back in November, this was a big topic. Don't use your work email for your Christmas shopping. Don't use it for Amazon. Don't use it for wherever you're buying your online Christmas things, if that's what you do. Because if you're doing that, you're potentially setting yourself up for failure. Many of the tactics that the bad guys use are fake shipping notices, fake purchasing notices, fake payment notices, things like that. And if you're not doing that with your work email, they're very, very easy to pick up. So you get let's say you're working in the middle of the day, and all of a sudden you get an email from Amazon saying, "Oh, your order has been shipped." If you're not using your work email for your Amazon shopping, you can be like, okay, delete, because you don't even have to worry about it, because it's a fake email. You wouldn't be getting that in your work email. If you are doing that, it's much harder to figure out, hey, is that really something I ordered and I forgot about? Did it finally come in stock? Because everybody knows, the supply chains right now are crazy. So I highly recommend not using your work email for personal use. And we'll talk more about that in an upcoming slide here as well, too. Of other reasons why you shouldn't be using. It's not just for shopping; it's also for your gym memberships, your anything non-work related. Don't use don't use that work email for anything outside of work. On the flip side, if you're connected to your work network on your work machine, and you decide, oh, you know what, I got to check my Spectrum email, so I'm going to go to the Spectrum webmail site and check it on my work PC. That's a no-no too, because if you happen to have one of those malicious emails that you open up from your personal email while you're on your work machine, guess what it's infecting? Your work environment, not anything else, because you're opening it up on your work PC. So what we recommend, either wait until you get out, or if you find that it is necessary to check your personal email while you're at work, check it on your phone. Use your data plan and check it on your mobile phone. And do it that way. That way you're not connected to the work network, and you're not connected using a work PC. It'll keep you a lot safer that way. So this is a screenshot of Microsoft Outlook. I'm assuming most people on this call are probably using Microsoft Outlook as their email client. If you are, in fact, using that Outlook client, this is a screenshot of the reading pane, or the preview pane, what it used to be called. And we recommend you turn that off. And the reason why we recommend you turn that off, that's basically on the right-hand side here, you can see the contents of the email that is highlighted at the top there in that gray area, where that's basically the message that it's showing you the contents of automatically. So that top message, every time a message comes in, that top message there is going to highlight and show the contents in that reading pane on the right-hand side without any interaction from you whatsoever. So why is that a risk? If by chance some malicious email comes through with malicious content in the email that basically needs to be open in order to start, this could effectively do that without any interaction from you, because you have the preview pane on, or the reading pane on. So let's say, for instance, you got a message that came in at lunchtime, and you decide to go to lunch. You may not even know the message was opened. It has malicious content. That thing was running for potentially up to an hour or longer by the time you get back, before you even realize what's going on, and it's not good to have. So what we recommend is turning that off. And to do that, the screenshot shows, you can highlight the view pane up here, which is this section right up here, and that will open up this ribbon, and then you can see the reading pane section here. If you hit that drop down arrow, it'll probably say right, bottom, and off. Just hit off, and that will actually get rid of this entire window over here, so it won't show that. And then in order to open up the message, you'll have to double click it then. Even if it does get past, a malicious one gets past, you are at least humanly interacting with that, and it's not automatically opening. And most times you can do a visual on it and say, why would I even open that in the first place, or it looks suspicious, instead of this automatically opening those for you. So it's just something to keep in mind, that we recommend turning that off to avoid those potential issues. So this is an example of a phishing email, and basically it looks like it's coming from a trustworthy sender. In this case, it's appearing to come from Microsoft Outlook, and it's designed to get the person, the receiver of this, to interact with it. So in this case, it's saying, hey, your password's expired and you need to change it immediately, or you won't be able to get access to your account anymore. So and they give you, they're so handy, they give you these two links in there. You know, one says change your password, and the other one is basically another form at the bottom here that's basically saying the same thing. You can click here to change your password too. So they give you two easy ways of changing your password. The problem is this is actually a malicious phishing email. It's not coming from Microsoft. So what happens is the receiver of this, if they decide to interact with any of these two links, what's going to happen is going to send them to a website that looks like Microsoft's website. However, it's not. It's a fake, and it's designed to look like that. And you're going to enter in your username and your password there, and it's basically going to get recorded and sent to the person that set up that fake website. So you, in theory, just gave them your login and your password because you followed these links that were designed to trick you into doing that. So it's just something, if you ever get one of these messages and you're not 100% positive of it, instead of spending the time, trying to figure out if you know even what to look for, or go dig a little deeper to see. If you're not 100% positive, you can do one of two things. First off, if you're a client of ours, please call our help desk. They can easily remote into your desktop and give a quick visual on it before you interact with it. Or you can do this yourself too. If you think this is legit or possibly legit, instead of clicking on these two links, open up a browser yourself. Whether it's Edge or Firefox or Chrome, whichever your browser of choice is. Open that up. Go to Microsoft's site by you typing it in there. Log in. That way you know you're on the right Microsoft site. And if this is legitimate, the minute you log in, it's going to tell you need to change your password. So it's just something, instead of blindly following these potential bad links, it's much easier if you just type it in yourself. That way you know you're getting to the correct site or not. So this is another example of a phishing email, and this is more of a scare tactic one. So it starts out by basically saying, hey, I know what your password is, and it's this. And that's the part where it puts everybody into from a psychology standpoint, it puts you into a fight or flight mode. And when you're in that mode, you're not usually thinking rationally. So then the message goes on to say, hey, I put software on your PC, and it's got proof of you being on adult-oriented sites or something to that nature. And we're going to embarrass you to your wife, your kids, your family, whatever, your husband. If you don't pay me $2,900 to not do that. So, like I said, that first sentence really is what kind of puts people into that fight or flight mode. The rest of this is fake. It's not real. But because you're not probably thinking rationally, you might think they have some kind of proof without, really thinking it through to the most point. So how do they get your password in the first place? Well, this goes back to using your work email for non-work usage. Again, maybe you use your business email for your gym membership. We'll just say that, or your shopping coupon club, whatever. One of those sites probably got breached. And when it got breached, the first thing the bad guys usually go after is the username and the password databases that are contained within those. They basically get them off the systems and get them onto their systems so they can try to go through and try to brute force people's passwords. When they get hits, then they got your username, and which is almost always your email address. And in this case, it's obviously your work email, or you wouldn't be getting this message in your work email inbox. And they've got your password that they figured out what it is. So that's how they got your password. So again, if you don't use your work email for personal stuff, that limits your exposure to these type of attacks. The other thing you got to be concerned about is if that isn't an old password that they're telling you, and that's a password that you still use somewhere else, you better make some wholesale changes very, very quickly, because if that person figures out where your login and your password match, they can log right into your accounts and wreak all kinds of havoc if that's the case. Now, we'll talk more about passwords later on in the presentation, but this is just an example of a scare tactic, basically, by using a compromised password somehow or another. So the last two are kind of we're kind of getting a little more targeted. You know, the first one, the phishing thing, was more of a, hey, let's throw a line out into the river, and the only way we're going to figure out what's biting on the other end is when we hook it and actually reel it up out of the water to see what kind of fish it is. The second one obviously was a little more pinpointed, because you know they have a compromised password with a user, which is your email. That's how they contacted you in the first place. Then this attack, called spear phishing, is even a little more targeted. So you're specifically going after a person of interest, and in most cases, this person of interest is usually an internal person, whether it could be an HR representative, a payroll person. And the person doing this type of attack usually pretends to be an employee. So in this case, this email is pretending to be an employee of a company, reaching out to the HR person saying that, or the payroll person saying that they want to change their direct deposit information, and they want it done immediately. And they provide them with you know other direct deposit information that they want to use, the routing number and the account number. So if you as a company or you as an entity don't have policies and procedures in place appropriately, you may blindly follow this email request, and you're going to find out real quick after payroll, when the employee that supposedly is requesting this comes to you asking where their payroll is because they didn't get paid. You're going to find out that, oh my gosh, this wasn't even the employee that was requesting this, and I have no idea where I just sent this person's payroll. Because you basically send it to a bank account that was probably set up with stolen identity credentials. And once that money got deposited into that account, it was pulled right out, and the account was probably closed, and the person's probably long gone with the wind at that point. So if you get one of these requests, don't blindly follow these type of requests just with email only. Call the person physically on a known number. Also, if you are still working in person, go see the person in person. Have them physically come and fill out a form with a signature in front of you, so you know it's actually the entity doing this, and you're not blindly sending payrolls to people that may not even be the right employee. So that's ways of avoiding that one. Then we have whaling. Whaling goes after, obviously, the big fish, and the big fish is sea levels, whether they're physically targeting sea levels or whether they're pretending to be sea levels. Usually it's the pretending to be sea levels, because they're trying to use that whole, oh, I can't say no to my CEO type of thing. And you know, this ranges from a variety of things. You know, usually the example that we have here is more targeted towards the CFO in a wire transfer. So it's basically someone that's pretending to be the CFO, probably reaching out to somebody that works in the finance department underneath the CFO, saying they want to transfer a wire transfer. You know, again, you get this type of request for anything financial, whether it's a wire transfer, whether it's, hey, go buy me some gift cards, or whatever. Don't just blindly follow these requests via email. Pick up the phone or go physically see the person that's requesting it, and just verify that it is truly them making this request. You know, I have a lot of people have questioned, well, I can't say no to my CEO or my C-level person. I'm going to get fired. You're not saying no, you're verifying. And if any C-level, you know, terminates you for being cautious, shame on them. That's just my take on it. You know, no disrespect to any C-level folks, but you know, you're anybody that comes to you and questions that this type of request is looking out for the best interest of the company. And if that C-level person can't see that, there's not much I can do about it. But you know, I've seen a lot of C-level folks thank people that question it, because more likely than not, it's not even them doing it. So they saved them, you know, a $20,000 wire transfer, or a couple $500 gift cards that would have been, you know, lost because someone just blindly followed you know, a request for that. So always verify with the person that is doing this. And there's a couple of ways we can do this. So we know this is an issue. So what we're recommending to our clients at this point is that when these emails are coming in, they're coming in from an external sender. They're pretending to be that person, but they're coming from an external sender. Unless the actual person's email is compromised. At that point, it would be different. But one of the things that we recommend our clients to do is to turn on external sender notification, and that's this little caution thing here in yellow that basically states that when you get that message, you're going to see this banner that says, hey, this is coming from outside the organization. So if you get a message from your CEO, supposedly coming from your CEO, and it has this tag on it, that's a pretty quick visual sign to say, this isn't my CEO contacting me, because if it was, it wouldn't have this banner on it. Same thing with even an employer. You know, if you're in payroll and you got an employee that's requesting a direct deposit change, if it has this banner on it, it's probably not your employee, because it would not have this banner, because it would be inside your organization, not outside your organization. So just a quick visual way of being able to verify some of this stuff. And like I said, unless the person's email account is actually compromised, then it should have this if it's coming from the outside. So we've kind of already touched upon this. It's the fake web page. It's actually called farming, is what it's called. And again, it's basically trying to harvest login and password information. This is just another example of it. This one looks like it's coming from a bank, financial institution, saying that, you know, hey, I need you to verify this withdrawal attempt, and click on this link here to verify that. Again, if you get one of these messages and you happen to be a trusted bank customer, don't click on this link. Open up a browser, go to the browser and type in trustedbank.com. Once you're on that website, log in with your credentials. If this is accurate, somewhere in your message system, they all have some kind of messaging system almost when it comes to financial institutions. Somewhere in there's going to be this, if this is real. But that's an easy way to avoid potentially clicking on this link and ending up on a fake site that isn't even the real site, in order to steal your credentials. So the only time I would say you could potentially click on links that are embedded in emails is if it's something you just generated. So what I mean by that is sometimes when you legitimately forget your password and you hit that password reset, it will usually send a message to your email address saying, hey, click here to reset your password. If you just did that and you're expecting that, I'm okay with, I would say you're safe to click on that link because you just generated that. But if you're getting one of those out of the blue and you didn't do it, obviously don't click on those. So it's kind of a sanity check. And since everybody is moving to Microsoft 365 for email, a lot of companies are. The bad guys know this, and they've changed their tactics a little bit. They also changed the tactics not only because of where the email is housed, but also because they know people aren't falling for the same old tricks. So they've got to change their game up a little bit. So this one's called consent phishing, and this is dangerous. This is very dangerous. So what it is, it's basically an application that pops up asking for permissions, and if you're not careful, and with these, and you just blindly hit that accept button here at the bottom, what you're doing is giving this application full-blown rights. So if you go down through all these and look at some of these, you're giving them full-blown rights to your Microsoft account. So they have access to your email, they have access to your contacts, they have access to your SharePoint if you're using that, your OneDrive, your Teams, your everything within the Microsoft ecosystem. You're basically giving permission by hitting accept to, and that is permission to use without login and MFA. This bypasses MFA too. So if you're using MultiFactor, which we'll talk about, this bypasses your user login, so they don't need to know your username, they don't need to know your password, and they don't need MFA because this bypasses all of that just by hitting accept here. Legitimately, sometimes there's applications that might need some permissions. What I would suggest is if you get one of these, ask for help before you blindly click on this or deny it for sure. In this case, this is a malicious app. It's easy to detect because it's a risky app. It shows that, and it's also an unverified app. So that's one visual way to know that it's probably not a very good app. The most legitimate apps will come back and have a verification at this point here. The bad guys haven't figured out how to bypass Microsoft's verification process yet. They will, but they haven't figured it out yet. So that's one visual test. But I would say if you're a client of ours and you get one of these, pick up the phone, call our desk, and let our desk take a look at this. Don't click on accept, because if you do, you basically given the keys to the kingdom, and there's no easy way to detect that once you click on that, unless you physically come forward and tell us that. And that's kind of leads into the next thing. If you do accidentally click on something in an email or one of these boxes, please, if you're a client of ours, let us know, or whoever your IT provider is. If you're not a client of ours, reach out to that person and get a hold of them immediately. The faster you do that, it's not to shame you, it's not to get you in trouble, it's to stop any potential damage from getting worse, because this can be very, very dangerous, and it can happen very, very quickly. So please notify anybody if you accidentally click on things. And then another form, because this kind of came around because of more so because of COVID. I mean, this has been around for a while, but it's become more prevalent. And this is basically using QR codes to utilize and hide the real websites behind them. So, if you get a QR code that's emailed to you in this example here saying, hey, scan this code to access your encrypted voicemail. That's basically going to send you somewhere or download something the minute you scan that. And by the time you realize it, it's already in progress. So the other thing too is, a lot of restaurants have gone to touchless menus, and they use these QR codes on their tabletops to you go in with your phone, you scan it, and their menu's electronic online, so you're using your own device instead of touching a menu that many others have touched. While this is legitimate, this also opens up the doors for bad actors. I could easily create tens of these things and just drop them on tables anywhere I want, and pretend like it's a menu for wherever I drop it. You can do it at coffee shops. I can do it at restaurants. And all it takes is someone to scan that code, and it could install something malicious or even give me access to their device. So before you blindly just assume that this is really the menu, I would ask your server or ask somebody just to make sure that hey, you are using these, because it's very easy to dupe people. Like I said, this is one of those easy ways to manipulate people without you even realizing it. I can go into a restaurant that isn't using touchless and just drop a few of these on some tables, and a lot of times even the wait staff won't even know, realize it until hours later when I've got 12 people that scanned them because they thought they were menus. And I can even fake it that it is a menu. You can even play into it and actually show them an online menu that you copied, but in the process installing something in the background. So just be cautious of what you're doing. So many ways to trick people, and like I said, it's easier than what many people think. So just be aware of it. Moving on, USB and mobile devices. Basically, the USB things are the flash drives I talk about. A lot of people, sometimes they use them to maybe transfer work back and forth, or if you have, I don't know, something that you need to bring from your house to your work PC, and it's too big to email or whatever. If you are using those to transfer any type of data back and forth, just be cautious. Usually your work PCs have a lot of protections involved, but your home PCs maybe not so much, or at least they're not managed by a company that can be a little stricter in that. Make sure you're doing virus scans at that side before you bring anything back into your company network. And if you happen to find one of these laying around and you don't know the owner, don't plug that thing into your machine, please. There could be something automated on there that will run or install without you even realizing it by you just simply plugging it in. So there's a lot of tactics that could be used that way, and have been used in the past to breach many highly secured environments, just by dropping a few of those in the parking lot, because curiosity kills the cat. It's crazy to think about, but it's the reality. Oh, hey, I got this USB key, bloop, and you just bypass the entire entire security of the company. So just be aware of that. The other thing too is, almost everybody has a smartphone. These things are battery hogs. And while it's easy to break out your power cord and plug it into, most of the time they're USBs. So you're like, oh, USB, okay, hey, I'm just gonna shove this into my desktop or shove this into my laptop and charge it that way. While it will charge, what you may not realize is it also turns your phone into a USB drive too. So if there happens to be anything on the PC or on your phone that is looking for that connection, it could potentially pull information off your phone or put information onto your phone inadvertently when you plug that in. So, always what I recommend is bring your wall outlet brick that plugs into the wall and use that for charging instead of charging it with your device directly, whether it's laptop or desktop. And that will avoid that problem. With that in mind, also be cautious of public charging stations. There's a lot of charging stations out there that are set up for convenience. Sometimes they're at hotels, sometimes they're at coffee shops, a lot of times they're at airports. While they could be useful, and as I mentioned, everybody has these devices that are power draws, and a lot of times you want to keep them charged. There's a lot of malicious charging stations out there too, and as I mentioned, you may think you're plugging into a public charging station at the airport. It's very easy for me to go in there and set up a malicious one. And when you plug that in, it's going to charge your phone, but I'm also going to be pulling all your information off your phone at the same time and sending it to a server that I have running in the background. So again, use your wall brick. They allow those on the planes, on carry-ons. As long as they're the smaller versions, they don't mind that. I would highly recommend using outlets and versus public charging stations when it comes to that aspect. So just something to be aware of. So passwords. We kind of mentioned this. We as a company are still advocates of complex and secure passwords and unique passwords. I know some bigger companies like Microsoft are trying to get away from passwords and claim that, easy passwords are better with multi-factor, and we'll talk about multi-factor here. I'm still under the pretense that you should be using a more secure and complex password. And the reason why Microsoft is saying that is because people tend to pick easy passwords anyway, so they figure why bother? Because a lot of it's been drilled into everybody that you can't write your password down, you can't write your password down, you can't write your password down. So in order to get by that, they pick easy passwords that they can remember, and they use that password everywhere, or they use a combination of that password everywhere. And it's the unfortunate thing is it's very easy to break or brute force, and it kind of eliminates the whole purpose of it anyways, even with multi-factor. I mean, and again, we'll talk about that, but we recommend strong passwords, and the reason why is I am an advocate for writing your passwords down, but I'm going to tell you to do it in a way that you're not recording the entire password. So what do I mean by that? So in this case, we're saying we recommend nine characters at a minimum. With those 9 characters, we recommend you contain one special character, an uppercase letter, and a number. So a special character is something like a plus sign, an @ sign, exclamation mark, a $sign perhaps. That's a special sign. And then obviously an uppercase letter and then a number as well. So it's got to contain all 3 of those within that 9 digits. With that in mind, what we say and what I recommend is, you obviously have to record that. You're never going to remember it unless you're doing something to kind of store that or something. So I recommend writing it down. I personally write my passwords down in a text file that I carry around on a USB key. That key is encrypted, so I do need to remember one password to get into that. And then once I'm into that, my passwords are actually just plain text on a text file, but they're not recorded again in entirety. So even without that encryption, I would give a printout to anybody with those passwords, and not fear of anybody guessing what my passwords are, because they're not the actual passwords. So what I mean by that is a 9-character password is what we're recommending. maybe on that piece of paper, you're only writing down 7 characters out of those 9 characters. So you're going to physically write down your password, but it's going to be missing 2 characters. You know what those 2 missing characters are. You know where they're missing, whether it's 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end, 1 at the beginning, 1 at the end, whichever it is. And you just, that's what you do. You know all those missing characters are the same in the missing ones. They can be the same. So it's easy to remember. And you know when you go to enter your password, you got to put those missing characters in. So if someone comes across that sheet, if it happens to be laying out in your desk, they're going to see 7 digits. They're going to try that. It's not going to work, and they're going to think it's an outdated password list and move on. That's one way to record your passwords. Excuse me. The second way is to do the opposite. It's possible to add characters as well. Now you got to be a little more careful when you add characters, and I'll explain why. So let's say again you're at 9 characters and you're going to record 11 characters. So you're going to add 2 characters somewhere in those passwords. You know when it's time to enter that password in, you've got to peel off those 2 extra characters. Again, whatever the pattern is up to you. It could be at the beginning, at the end. It could be one at the beginning, 1 at the end, however you want to do it. But what you do need to be careful of is you can't, in the sense of adding characters, you can't use the same characters that you add. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're adding 2 characters at the beginning of every one of your passwords. The first one you have on your list is the first 2 characters. You have AB. You can't use AB the whole way down that list on every one of your passwords, because there's software out there. I can look at that list and I can enter that list into that piece of software, and it's going to detect that pattern of AB being added to every single one of your passwords. And I'm going to try your password without that combination, and it's going to be right because the pattern matches the whole way down the list. So what you need to do in that case, when you're adding characters, you got to mix those characters up. You can't use the same ones the whole way down the list. It doesn't matter what you mix them up with, because you don't have to remember them anyways. You just have to remember that you're peeling those characters off. So, your first one might be AB, the next one might be ZQ, it could be 13, as you go down through. Just randomize those characters that you're adding to that list. And again, it doesn't matter because you don't have to know them anyways. But that's another way of writing your passwords down without writing the true password down. If you really want to get tricky, you can do a combination of both. You can add characters and have missing characters. That's really complex, but most people, because of the ease of things, they do the missing characters, because they only have to remember the 2 missing characters, and it's not something you're recording, so they can all be the same, and it's easier to remember. So that seems to be the what most users choose if they go down this path. There are online password managers that will keep this stuff for you, where you don't have to physically write it down. The problem with that is that there's a bunch of them out there. There's really 5 big ones that are really well known, and unfortunately the bad guys know about those too, so they try to attack them frequently. And out of the 5, 3 have been breached already, and 1 has been breached twice. So if you want to trust somebody else to hold your passwords, that's okay with you. Me personally, I'll walk around with them on my USB key. And do it that way. Now, I do have a printout of those 2 just in case I lose that USB key. Not so worried about someone breaking into my accounts, because like I said, my passwords aren't fully on that sheet anyways. But I need something to be able to recreate that list if because I'm not going to remember every single thing that's on there if I don't have a printout of it. But that's also stored in a safety deposit box at my bank, and I also have one in a safe at my house. So they're still secured, securely, basically. So that's one thing. With that in mind, passwords aren't the holy grail, and this here shows you how fast it is to basically break a password. So if you're using 8 or 9 digits and you're using numbers only, even up to 10, I can guess that password in almost instantaneously. That's every possible combination, 0 through 9, 8, 9, or 10 digits long. It's almost instantly. If you add lowercase letters, just lowercase letters. You can see, you know, the times there: 5 seconds for 8, 2 minutes for 9, 58 minutes for 10. And this is basically going through every possible combination that could be used with just lowercase letters. So as you go across the graph there, I'm not going to read each and every one of them, but in theory, you know, if you're using what our recommendations are at 9 characters, in theory, it'll be about 3 weeks to a month before, if someone's trying to brute force that password potentially, you know, if they somehow got your password hash, that they could do it offline. It would take about 3 weeks to a month to physically break into that password. You know, as you see, if you add more characters to that password in reality, you know, if you take that 9 to 11 characters for real, and that is your password, it's going to take 400 years for someone to break that. So you can see the more characters you add, the much longer period of time it takes to actually get into that. So just something to keep in mind. So we talked a little bit about this multi-factor. I mentioned it a few times throughout the presentation. Multi-factor is basically, it's also called two-factor, and it's basically a concept of something you know and something you have. So the something you know is your username and your password. That's something you know. And the something you have is the second factor, which is usually your cell phone. It's usually a code that's generated on your phone that when you put in your username and password, it'll automatically ask you for that code that is being generated on your phone. That code is generated every minute usually, and in some instances it's actually hey, are you trying to log in? And it's an approval process. That's called a push. That's much more secure than the code is, but either one of those, if you activate those, more likely than not, they tend to stop 99.9% of the hacker attempts, because it's very difficult for a remote person to be able to figure out that multi-factor piece of it. Now, with that in mind, the 0.1% that's left there, that's for the person that is sitting next to you with an in-person attack. So if I'm sitting next to you and I know you're looking for a multi-factor 6-digit code, you know, obviously if you go back to this screen, you can see an eight character numbers only is instantaneous. This one we're talking about 6 digits. I can guess that on my cell phone in less than a minute. So as fast as that code is being generated on your phone, I can guess every possible combination and hit that number if I'm sitting next to you while your login is waiting for this. So just something to be aware of. Again, this does stop 99.9% of the attacks, but it's one of those things where, you know, we highly recommend this if you're not using multi-factor, especially with email. If you're using VPN, it's another layer where, you know, if in case your credentials are breached, they can't get access to your account without that MFA. So that's the one thing. The only exception to that would be that consent phishing thing that we mentioned with that application. If you give permissions there, it bypasses MFA too. So, but highly recommend multi-factor for usage. So public Wi-Fi risks, I know we're running short on time here, but I'm going to just briefly cover this. If you want to learn more about public Wi-Fi risks, I'm not going to go real deep into the technology of this, but the one thing I will caution you is anything, and I'm talking about your coffee shops, your hotels, your airports, things that you connect to with your phone, you know, or your laptop while you're away from your network. If you connect to a public Wi-Fi, whatever you're doing on your device at that point in time, if that isn't something you would walk up to a complete stranger on the street and talk to them about or show them, you probably don't want to be doing it on public Wi-Fi, because that's basically the essence of it. You could potentially be showing complete strangers exactly everything that you're doing while you're connected to that public Wi-Fi. So I highly recommend you not using that for anything more than a non-authenticated Google search of research or something. Don't log into your email. Don't log into your Facebooks, your Instagrams. Don't log into your whatever. Use your data plan that's on your cell phone. That's much more secure. Or some people have MiFi devices, which are those little standalone devices that basically acts as an access point. Those are much more secure as well. If you want to know more about this, I would suggest you go to our website and take a look at our There's some podcasts that we have out there that gets really deep into this. It's about 15, 20 minutes, really gets into the nitty gritty of how some of these attacks are done, and talks about them. It's just a quick talk, but definitely educational if you're interested in more of this. I'm not going to spend the time now to get through it, but highly recommend staying away from public Wi-Fi at all costs. Just my personal opinion. So wrapping things up, just some cybersecurity reminders. Only collect the amount of data that you need. If you're regulated to hold on to 5 years worth of data, don't hold on to 10. In the event you are compromised, you will be responsible for all of the data that got compromised, not just your allocated 5-year mark. So if you're holding 10, you're going to be responsible for 10 years worth of data. Obviously, limit access to systems with sensitive information. Secure your devices. Make sure your firewalls and networks are set up properly. Any former employers, whether they got terminated or left on their own, make sure that they are disabled. And that one thing to keep in mind, that pipeline, the gas pipeline hack that happened, that was actually occurred from an account, a VPN account of an employee that didn't work there for 6 months. They never deactivated it, and somewhere along the line, his credentials were compromised at another site because he did use his work email, and that site was breached, and they figured out that he used to work for this company, and they tried that, and that's how they actually got in, with that compromised credentials, and with an account that wasn't disabled. So it's kind of two of the things we talked about is what caused that hack and breach. So. And then finally, make sure you have backups of your data. In the event you do get hit with ransomware, your only saving grace is if you have a good backup. Usually the first thing the bad guys go after is the backup, so make sure you have a backup that is securely protected, either in the cloud or somewhere that they can't get access to, and just delete the backups, because that's usually what they try to go after. And then they infect you with ransomware and hold you hostage. So it's just something to be aware of. So hopefully, this gives you a little more insight into, what some of the bad actors are doing out there, and how to avoid them. If anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the chat. Next steps, obviously, you will get an email with a certificate of attendance. A lot of companies are using those as part of their cybersecurity training requirements, so they will get sent out. If you do have any questions, you could also send them to info@PCATG. Like I said, I would highly recommend checking out some of those podcasts. We do the social media one, we do wireless. There's a whole bunch of them there that we do, and it's like I said, they're real short and very, very enlightening and educational. We'll be holding another one of these presentations in January. And hopefully either yourself or your coworkers, if they're interested in attending, we would love to have them. So I don't think I see any questions in the chat at this time, so I'm going to assume everybody is okay. I thank you for your time. Hopefully this was enlightening, and I wish you the best. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everybody. Take care.
Welcome to Sweet Hacks for Office 365, a video series featuring quick tips to help you boost productivity in the Cloud Suite. Today, we're going to talk about where Microsoft falls short when it comes to avoiding SaaS data loss, and what you can do to keep your critical data secure. Microsoft's SLA states that they are not liable for data loss associated with app outages, ransomware, or deprovisioned users. Even though they claim to offer native recovery features, they can be cumbersome to use, and the last thing you want to do is end up on the phone with support. So how does Microsoft recommend businesses avoid data loss? By regularly backing up data with a third-party application. Businesses fall victim to data loss and corruption every day. Want to know the #1 cause of data loss? Human error. If you have humans working at your company, then yes, you're at risk to lose data. Whether it be human error or your data simply gets deleted by Microsoft when the retention period is up, a third-party application that takes daily automated backups will keep your SaaS data accessible and recoverable no matter what.